It's time to take a ride on the Steelers Afternoon Drive with our co-hosts, Alan Saunders and Zachary Smith.
Welcome to another Steelers Afternoon Drive. I'm Zachary Smith. That is Alan Saunders. Alan, what's going on?
Yeah, normal day.
Yeah, we got the normal background behind you. We're not taking a drive anywhere. We're not going to West Palm Beach today. We're just back in a normal setting.
And I'm keeping it a little Florida here with the pastel shirt.
Okay. All right, still bringing the vibes. First things first, Randy Tobias, very appreciative of my new setup. I had to like this comment. Smitty, I like the new studio. Big improvement today, not having the moving ceiling fan distracting. I think I actually have it going right now, so let me turn that off for you, Randy. But from everything that you have to say, of course, no blinding lights is always good as well. Look forward to more, many more years of content with higher production value from you. So, yeah, there's much more natural light down here than there was in my parents' basement. So I'm glad about that for sure. I know that, I had to find a way to navigate that light that was just beaming right down into my webcam for a while for Randy. So I had like the ring light going and like a light way in the corner of the room in the basement down there just to have enough light to do it. But here it's easy. I got much more natural light in this room. So appreciate you being here, Randy. Other than that, Alan, first things first, the first thing I wanted to talk about, honestly, you just educated me and maybe you could educate some other people here. This German soccer club partnership, I was super confused. I was like, what in the world does this mean? What does this do for the Steelers? Why are they a part of this? Like, what is this partnership going to look like? What is the reason for doing? I have so many questions about it. You answered a lot of them before, but people watching and listening to the show might have the same questions that I had.
Yeah, so Borussia Dortmund is a German soccer team in the Bundesliga from Dortmund, Germany, which is in the Ruhr Valley. It is a partnership between the Steelers and BVB is what they are kind of generally called by their initials, I guess. I don't even know what BVB stands for. But the idea here is it's a sort of collaboration between the two franchises to cross promote one another in each other's cities and to each other's fan bases. And I would assume that involves plans to do more things like they've already done in the past. So Dortmund played in Pittsburgh in 2018 in a friendly at then Heinz Field. The Steelers sent some people to one of their games last year, including Miles Killebrew. Both teams wear black and gold, although they called yellow. So that's sure to bring up some conflict here in this partnership. Yeah. So that's the idea, is like they're basically trying to promote one another to each other's fan bases.
Have yourself a day, Julius Welschoff. He's smiling right now. This is a great day for him.
So, I mean, yes, I would say that Julius Welschoff is probably quite okay with the idea. But Julius Welschoff is from Bavaria, and I've got a feeling that Dortmund is not his team. So, very different parts of the country.
I guess I should have done that. I kind of pigeonholed every German soccer club into one thing there with saying he'd be happy about it. But I just meant the football team that he currently plays on partnering up with a German soccer club has to be pretty cool. But yeah, probably not his preference of German soccer club.
Yeah, and there's there's a bit of a rivalry there as well. I don't know. I don't know if he's a Bayern Munich fan. I know he is from like that area. But like
ask him this offseason.
That's the rivalry in German soccer.
Gotcha. Well, hey, you know what? You just came up with a question to ask Julius Welschoff when you get to see him.
They have been like first and second in the league, I want to say, like for the last 5 years, usually with Bayern Munich, the team ahead. Although I don't think Dortmund had a very good season last year. Similarities between the two teams go beyond like black and yellow. Dortmund is an old industrial city in the Ruhr Valley, part of like the historic German steelmaking area and coal mining area. Big industry that has sort of transformed itself into more of like a modern technical economy, very similar to Pittsburgh. So pretty similar fan bases, I would say. Very passionate fans. Note it like one of the it's if you go to any like website and just type in like where are the best like places, like what are the best soccer environments in Europe, Dortmund's going to come up on that list. They have a very large stadium. I think it's the 6th largest in Europe, capacity over 81,000, but it has this one end zone section that's all standing room that is notorious for just being insane. And they call it the yellow wall, and it's pretty nuts. So if the Steelers eventually play in Germany, and they do have marketing rights in Germany, and Art Rooney has said they eventually want to play in every country they have marketing rights, I would operate under the assumption that's where they're going to play.
Friend of the show, Joe Frick, who actually put together our background here, if you guys appreciate the turf look that we got in the background here, has actually been to that stadium. I saw him reply to the Steelers tweet that he was there for a soccer game. So pretty cool.
So and the NFL's never had an NFL game in that area of Germany. They've played in Munich, they've played in Frankfurt, which isn't that far. And this year they're playing in Berlin, but that is a very large area. Cologne is like the largest city in that state, I guess is what you would say the equivalent is. But there are a number of big cities, Dusseldorf and Essen and Dortmund and Cologne. They're all pretty close together in this area, and the NFL's never had a game there. But when they had the NFL Europe League, there was a team in Cologne, and it's an area with like a pretty decent American football fan base. So I like the first thing I thought when I heard this is two things. One, I assume they're going to come back and play another game at Acrisure Stadium after it's been 6 years. So like I assume that'll happen. And the second is when the Steelers go to Germany, especially considering that's one of the coolest places to play in all of European soccer, like that not only should happen, we should be pretty excited about the idea of that happening.
Yeah, absolutely. When you said, I just love saying and hearing Dusseldorf. Don't know why. It's music to my ears every time that I hear it.
You got to put the little umlaut over the Dusseldorf, you know. I don't know.
That sounds even better.
My German is very rusty. I did take some in college, but that's a long time ago. I've got to really brush up if we're going to make this thing.
Yeah, happen. Hey, in a month, I'm going to be the biggest fan of this. I'm going to know everything about their history, the soccer club. If that's what the Steelers want me to do, if that was the point of this, give me a month. I'm going to know everything about their history. Anyway, chance to catch up with Joey Swellshop about this might come during OTAs. Wanted to ask you about that. Later OTA schedule.
Nailed that one. Yes.
Yeah.
Very nice segue.
Hey, that's what I try to do. That's what I try to do. Lighter OTA schedule though this year, and what's up with that?
Yeah, a little surprised by that. Only 6 OTA sessions scheduled. The max is 10. They've usually at least scheduled the max and then sometimes said, maybe we'll only do 9. I do remember one year that only did 6. I want to say maybe that was like 2021. It was when Ben was still on the team. I know that. And obviously, I don't think we had OTAs at all in the COVID year.
Right.
So, but like, little surprising. It seems like more teams are going down this road. I wonder, I remember in 2021, someone asked Mike Tomlin about it, and he said, like, hey, we got a veteran team. Like, we don't really need all this. Not really sure how much that's the case right now, although it would be certainly if they have Aaron Rodgers as their quarterback. He definitely downplayed the importance of OTAs in that conversation when we talked to him at the owners' meetings. Basically said he doesn't care if Aaron Rodgers is at OTAs or not. And so the fact that they're only having 6, I think, you kind of have to negotiate with your own team here if you're the Steelers. Like, they're optional. The players do not have to go, and you can't make them. And so if the players say they're not going to go, or that they don't want to go, or they don't want to do 10 of them, what's better for your team? To have 10 practices, but only half the team at any one of them, or have 6 practices where almost everyone shows up?
Right.
It seems like that makes more sense. I think we're probably coming to an end of OTAs as we know them. I think the NFL is going to move to the proposed schedule from the union, where OTAs will only be for players that are rookies, first-year players, guys on future contracts, things like that. And then the regular roster will report the middle of July for a sort of 2-week OTA ahead of the start of training camp. I think that's probably where we're headed.
So if that's the case for rookies really being the only ones participating in that, do they still, in your mind, like with this proposed thing, still have the rookie mini camp prior to that?
Yeah, I mean,
Like,
you would just kind of
everything
roll it
stays-
into it, I would assume, at that point. But yeah, basically like an expanded rookie mini camp in place of OTAs, and maybe with more participation from like guys rehabbing injuries and things of that nature. But have it so that the bulk of what is OTAs happens right before the start of training camp. It really, when you think about it, doesn't make a lot of sense that you're trying to get these guys in shape in April and May, and then you like leave them for a month and a half, and then just come back and like, it's not the old days. Guys stay in shape year round now. Like, it's not like before where guys had off-season jobs and then show up having not lifted a weight, things like that. Like, it's not the way it goes. Mostly OTAs are about instruction anyway, and you can do that without being on the practice field, and you can certainly do that with mostly younger guys. So I think we're headed to the early part of the offseason program, mostly being for younger and less experienced players, and bringing those vets in early July.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll see if any of the 4 players that visited the Steelers on Thursday are going to be part of that for the Steelers, which, by the way, I love that everybody got on board on Twitter, just everybody tagging DB. We were like, were you the one that put this list together for today? I mean, I don't know how he feels about Gavin Bartholomew coming in from the Pitt tight end, but like outside of that, like those are 3 of his guys that were here in Matthew Golden, Azareye'h Thomas, and Kaleb Johnson. So 3 guys that we've talked about quite a bit for the Steelers. And now in the case of Thomas, like, and I'm not sure about Golden. Thomas definitely has checked all the boxes in terms of like, this would be a Steelers first round pick if you're following the tea leaves here. Has Golden as well or no?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think they're like necessary boxes to check, but yeah, if you look at the guys with 3 marks on our board, Matthew Golden is probably the first round pick that has that. They had a formal interview with him at the combine. Mike Tomlin was at his pro day, and now he's coming in for the top 30 visit. 1, 2, 3. We've got a couple others, like Jalen Milroe. They met with at the Senior Bowl. Tomlin was at his pro day. Also, Tom Marth, his position coach, was at his pro day. Azareye'h Thomas, Senior Bowl, 30 visit, and had Ike Taylor. So, a non-area scout, basically someone who's specifically there for one position at his pro day. There are a couple others. I listed them on Twitter: Jalen Noel and Jaden Higgins, Jackson Dart,
Alfred Collins.
Oh, Alfred Collins, yeah. And I'm sure there will be more. The other thing is, I could post this. Everyone's like, "Where's all the D tackles?" I'm like, "Well, they've had 9 of their 30 visits, so we're gonna have a lot more." I don't even think, even if you count the ones that reported. And by the way, the ones that are reported don't always happen. Like sometimes,
who was it that like notorious? It was just a couple of years ago. I remember there was like a big thing made about they had a 30 scheduled with somebody, but then they didn't actually come. I can't remember who it was. It was a pretty high profile player.
Yeah, it happens. It happens.
I can't remember. Yeah.
And so, but even if you take what's been reported at face value and say all those are going to happen, I don't even think we're over half yet. So
yeah,
a lot of it's left to come. I wouldn't be fretting over the fact that like Kenneth Grant, Walter Nolan, Derek Harmon, Jahdae Barron have not come into Pittsburgh. And I think all those guys have at least one of these kind of boxes checked. I don't really feel like I feel like once you got at least one of them, they've checked in. Like, I don't think there's anybody on our board at all, except for like Tet McMillan, who I think even has like a 1% chance of being there to the Steelers, that they've paid absolutely no attention to.
Just in terms of like the triple interest here, though, that we're talking about, 7 names on there right now, 3 of them receivers. Is that again? It's like there's still a lot that are going to come in and everything like that. But this kind of plays into a question that somebody was going to ask us: does that make you think any more about wide receiver early, like even in the first round when you talk about Matthew Golden's on there? Obviously, somebody even texted me today, like, because we were talking yesterday about maybe a name to keep an eye on that we haven't talked about a ton in the first round. This would be pretty early for him, but Jaden Higgins getting first round buzz. Now he's got the triple box here for the Steelers. Again, not saying that I would do it or want them to do it, but any thoughts, or more thought, I should say, to the Steelers wide receiver in the first round?
Yeah, I mean, I've thought that it's up there. It's pretty clear that it's like D tackle, and then it's wide receiver. Like, then we talked about safety yesterday, and I'm writing about that today for SteelersNow.com, or maybe tomorrow morning. But like, there's no question that wide receiver is up there on the Steelers' interest. Like, it's not. It's the first round. It's the second round. It's the third round. When you look at like Savion Williams coming in for a 30 visit. They sent Zach Azareye'h to Tennessee to see Dante Thornton, who's a day 3 guy. Like, the interest is there all the way through at wide receiver. I would be astonished if they don't draft a wide receiver somewhere. And I don't think there would be any reservations about it being as high as the first round pick.
If it were a first round pick, does that change how you feel about George Pickens?
Well, I mean, it completely would rule out the idea of them re-signing him. Not that I think that's going to be likely at all, but there is, I don't know, 15, 20% chance, something like that. I mean, it goes down to near zero at that point. I don't think it necessarily changes things for 2025. We've talked about the fact that I think they need another receiver. They do need another receiver. That's more than just an opinion. And so, like, I don't think drafting Matthew Golden, or any of those other guys for that matter, would mean that the Steelers would have to trade George Pickens. It would certainly make him more expendable. But I don't think it would by itself say, they've got to do this now.
I wouldn't say got to, but like, it'd be interesting to me. Like, let's just talk even just the Iowa State guys in a vacuum, just those 2, right? If you take Jaden Higgins, I think that really like makes it.
I don't know what you're doing with Jaden Higgins or Trey Harris or one of those.
Ty Felton.
Those are probably actually just the only 2 that I'm like, what are you doing with George Pickens and DK Metcalf and that guy? Those 2 really don't make any sense if you still have George Pickens. The rest of these guys, Golden certainly can be a Z, Egbuka is a Z or a slot, Ayman or Besh, Noel, Bond. These guys are Z's or slots. Like, it's so. I don't think that really. Savion Williams, even Felton, I think, can be a Z. Kyle Williams is definitely a Z. Like, there's those are probably the only ones I would say where it's like, and like Dante Thornton is also that guy, but a project that you're going to draft in the 5th or 6th round, where it would not harm him at all to not play very much this year. But if you're going to draft somebody in the early rounds that looks like that, I think then I'm probably thinking, okay. And also, like, how are they getting Jaden Higgins or Trey Harris without trading George Pickens? Like, I don't know how they're getting that high in the 2nd round any other way.
Yeah, that's very true. But the reason I just feel like Higgins would be an interesting fit, but on the reverse side of that, the other Iowa State receiver, Jalen Noel, I think would be a perfect complement to that room if he were keeping
He'd
George
be great
Pickens.
Third wheel there, absolutely. And I don't think it's like unnecessarily burying the other 2 guys either, because
Did we talk about on here? I don't know if it was when you record like 8 podcasts a week, sometimes things get lumped together. But did we talk about on here the idea of a short-term George Pickens extension? Like, theoretically, could they give him like?
I think we briefly may have broached it. I'm a little skeptical. It's not generally the way the Steelers have done business. I'm not really sure why Pickens would agree to it.
Well, I guess my thinking was just like giving him a pay bump for 2 years, like give him a 2-year extension, basically. with it like ripping up, but basically a completely new deal.
Yeah, so like make it like whatever he's going to earn now plus another $5 million, and then add some money into 26. I mean, it's I just don't really know what I don't know who wants that. I'm sure Pickens doesn't want that. Pickens either wants paid or wants to get to free agency. And I don't really know why the Steelers would want that, because is it going to be cheaper than just letting him play out this year and tagging him next year if they really decide they want him?
I get my only thinking with it is it going to, I'm basically looking to like buy time, tide him over for a season to hopefully keep him happy with the understanding.
Oh, so like you're thinking like if the Steelers are saying, well, we'll just let you play out this year and tag you next year, then his response would be, well, then I'm not gonna show up.
Yeah, like it's gonna get ugly. So like getting him the pay raise this year would,
I mean, if that's the idea, they could do that. I just would that really make him happy? I don't know. Like
I don't I have no idea.
Would that be enough to like I don't know. I don't feel real comfortable speculating on like what people are gonna feel. That's tough. I don't think we have any idea.
Yeah. All right. The other thing that I want to touch on before we get into some questions here was Joe Milton got traded, and it was an interesting trade to me, with the Patriots getting a 5th back for him, but also giving up a 7th along with Milton to the Dallas Cowboys. One, do you feel like the Steelers should have been in at that price? And 2, do you understand the Patriots process here to, go and get Josh Dobbs to be the backup and then be willing to move Milton for that price?
Yeah, I think the Steelers probably were in at that price. It was reported by Jordan Schultz that they were among the teams that were interested, and that the Patriots did not take the highest price. I remember Aaron Rappaport saying earlier this offseason he thought that they'd need a second to trade him. I guess they were more motivated than he thought, or maybe, just saying things to say them. But I think I think the Steelers should have been interested at that price. I don't think he's a very good prospect, but like, it's better than what they got. I guess
my thing is, would you rather have 3 years of Joe Milton or 4 years of somebody you could potentially take? And I'm not saying any quarterback from this class, but specifically one that you did on day 3.
Yeah, and not just day 3, like with a 5th round, with a 7th rounder going back, which is like even farther down. So, like, let's peg the value at like, where's the Steelers pick in the 5th round? So let's peg the value at like pick. I don't know. The Cowboys were at 159. All right, let's peg the value at like pick 160. Who are you going to get with pick 160? Maybe Kyle McCord's there. Dylan Gabriel, Ryan Leonard, or Riley Leonard, Brady Cook, Curtis Rourke, like one of those guys, probably. Yeah, I think I like Joe Milton better than that group.
Yeah, McCord's the only one.
Kyle McCord is better, and I like Brady Cook, but I think Milton's probably better. But like that's why I think the value kind of makes sense. Look, Milton is a very unlikely to succeed project. Probably just as likely to succeed as a tight end as he is a quarterback. But for what they paid, I would have done that and just not drafted a quarterback this year.
Yeah, I guess that's the thing, right? Like, again, 3 years of Milton, 4 years of whoever they would have drafted within that spot. But what's done is done, and it seems like that was kind of the landing spot that he was hoping for. His mom grew up a Cowboys fan and feels like he's going to have a shot to compete there. And hey, if Dak Prescott certainly hasn't been the healthiest guy, we'll see if something happens there and if he gets on the field and what it would look like. Alan, you sent me a question that you got here, and I actually really like this because literally just yesterday we talked about the worst case scenario for pick 21, and oftentimes on here we end up going down a rabbit hole of talking about the worst possible outcomes. Well, J Primetime, JMC, which looks like his Joey Porter profile picture. Really enjoy that. Said, "Hey, Alan, we've heard you and Smitty both talk about some catastrophic situations that could go wrong for the Steelers in 2025 season. I work an 18-hour shift tonight as a nurse. Would love to hear some positivity during this dreaded shift. If there are any players that could take big leaps in 2025, and if there's a player that could leap into the top at his position, obviously excluding guys like TJ, Cam, and Minka." Okay, first off, appreciate the work that you do as a nurse. 18 hours as a nurse, backbone, one of the backbones, one of the pillars of this country. So we appreciate the work that you do there. But Alan, I think that this is an interesting question. Again, we always talk about the worst possible outcomes that could happen. Well, how could we provide some positivity, spin it in a positive way? How could 2025 turn out well for the Steelers? Who would have to take a leap for that to happen?
I want to sidebar or have you watched The Pit at all
on
HBO?
Awesome. Amazing.
Dude, I don't
tonight. It's on tonight.
I know. I watch almost no television that is not sports, and it's captivatingly good. You should. And the hook was for me. Oh well, it's set in Pittsburgh. I was like, all right, well, I'll watch it just to.
And there's at least like one way that they work in Pittsburgh
but
in
like
every episode.
It's so good beyond that. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So that was like the first thing that popped in my head when he said he was working an 18-hour shift as a nurse because, well, that's sort of the premise of the show. Some positivity. So, I think the Steelers are in really good shape at 21. And that there will almost certainly be a very good player at a position of strong need available to them when you look at Grant, Nolan, Harmon, Egbuka, Golden, Burden, Barron, and the safeties. They almost can't miss at 21. There have been plenty of years where you're looking at the guys they need and you're looking at the numbers ahead of them and you're trying to figure out who's going to take where. And it's like, will there be one of them available to, like, not this year. Like, they'll probably have their pick of 2 or 3 of those guys. And I honestly feel like they're going to be able to trade down if they want to because of how many of them are there. And you start to include some other guys as you move down a little bit. I still think they'll be in really good shape. This is not a great draft. Like, this is you're going to hear the Mel Kipers and that group of people say, like, not a very talented draft class. And I agree. 10 to 15 is pretty ugly looking compared to what it normally is. But I think the Steelers are just uniquely in a position where the one thing that this draft seems to have in that area is what they really need. And then if they're able to trade back and recoup maybe a day 2 pick, I doubt they'll be able to get into the second with a trade back, but they could probably get into the third or maybe combine their 4th with a trade back to get back into the second, something like that. And then I think it lines up again pretty nicely. The second round is full of corners and wide receivers, and it starts the beginning of a really, really good running back class. Like, I think the Steelers are in position to get 3, if not 4 guys that will make an impact on the team this year. And that's pretty rare. And they will, if they do it, they will have done that like basically 3 years in a row. Not all those picks have turned out the way they thought, but they were all picking players that were good enough to make an impact right away. And I think that's like, at the end of the day, Aaron Rodgers doesn't matter. DK Metcalf doesn't matter. The offensive coordinator doesn't matter. Mike Tomlin doesn't matter. The way you get good in the NFL is by winning in the draft over and over and over again. Go look at the Steelers draft history when Kevin Colbert got here, and you'll see why they won 2 Super Bowls. Like, it's all right there. And I think they're in really good position to continue the trend of the last 2 years. And I think when you look at the big picture, that's probably the most important thing. Okay.
Well, I appreciate you taking the draft approach. I'll look at the current roster then, since you did that. I think when you look at the way that the roster is currently constructed and looking for somebody to take, not only to me a reasonable expectation, but I expect that the defense is going to be better this upcoming season than they were last year. I don't know what in the world happened in those last 5 games, from a communication aspect and why things kind of broke down. But I believe Darius Slay is a better player than they've had opposite of Joey Porter Jr. ever, obviously, in his tenure here. And I think that it's reasonable to expect Patrick Queen to be better in year 2 within this defense. I do think Landon Roberts is a big loss, but not enough for me to say they're going to be significantly worse on that side of the football. You plug in that first-round defensive tackle, assuming that that's the direction that they go, and I really like what they're cooking on the defensive side of the ball. Offensively, obviously, Jalen Warren is the guy that we're going to be look at taking a larger role, and I think that last year I just felt like he never really was healthy. Like, he got injured in the preseason, and I just don't feel like we saw the version of Jalen Warren that we had seen in 22 and 23 in 2024. Was that fully due to injury? Was it him getting acclimated into the scheme? Is he not maybe the best fit for the scheme and trying to adjust to that? I'm not sure. Obviously, a very young offensive line, and for them, the biggest thing is going to be reps that they have together. But how can you not be excited for year 2 of Zach Frazier after what he did in year 1? And, the biggest leap that I think needs to happen is probably Broderick Jones going to the left side. Like, he's going to determine a lot of this, especially if it's 42-year-old Aaron Rodgers playing quarterback. So I think that there's good reason for optimism despite whoever is playing the quarterback position.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to be great, but I think...
No, step forward, I should say. Yeah,
I think
continuing to get better.
I think you can see the clear plan, right? Like, okay, the idea is this year you'll get the full effect of the offensive line drafts over the last few years. You're going to start to see the effect of the same thing happening on the defensive line. And so, yeah, I mean, I think they're in – look, this is a team that is rebuilding, and it is not in win now mode, but it is going to be pretty good while it's rebuilding. And, like, people get very frustrated at the status quo at 9-7. And I understand that. And what the Steelers are attempting to do is not necessarily the way most other teams go about it. So I understand some skepticism about the process. But if they do it, if they get from contender to contender, without having ever been below 500 in between, same head coach, that will have been one of the greatest and most difficult team building jobs in the salary cap era of any sport. Like that, that's never been done. Never. And so, I understand the skepticism and the frustration, but you can pretty clearly see the path they're headed on. And their success in the draft makes me think they can get there.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest part for me is aside from the team results, just feeling like they are going forward at the very least and feeling like there is a plan of attack that I can believe in. So, I mean, that's kind of where I've been the last couple of seasons, despite, as frustrating as it was to watch the last 6 weeks of this past season. I knew that they weren't there yet anyway. Ultimately, they ended up being exactly the team that I thought they were going to be, a 6th seed that lost in the first round of the playoffs. How they got there was very frustrating, but it all equals out to the team that they looked like they were at the beginning of the year.
Yeah, and I think if you go into this year and you replaced some older players with some younger players, and even if you don't get any better, if it's Troy Fautanu doing it instead of Dan Moore, and it's your rookie first round pick doing it instead of Larry Ogunjobi, and it's a rookie running back doing it instead of Najee Harris, and it's oh, well, okay, now they're 10-7, but it's the guys that are going to be here. That's still better.
Yeah, I have a question for you, actually, because you were just talking about the defensive line there, and this is just something that I've heard, having a conversation with somebody over the last week about just the way that the team talks about this player being very different from the way that fan base talks about him. Have you ever I'm sure you've had conversations with people in the organization about Keanu Benton, and I just get the sense, especially talking with this person, that they are super they love Keanu Benton. They think he's this awesome player. But then from a fan base perspective, it seems like a lot of people are disappointed that he didn't take this massive leap last year. What's your sense of Keanu Benton, both your opinion and also if you know anything about how the organization feels about him?
Yeah, I think Keanu Benton's a really good young defensive lineman. I don't Like, I think he's a cornerstone piece of what they're going to be building there. And I don't really see a lot of reason not to think that.
I think people were expecting like these massive pass rush numbers last year.
I thought he would get more sacks. I did.
Yeah.
I thought he was really close a lot in his first year, and then he would be able to convert at a better rate. But like TJ Watt didn't have as many sacks either. Like, they were just not as efficient of a pass rush team as they've been overall. And so for me, I don't really put that on Benton as much as I just put it on the defense. I think he's a really good player. I don't know what you want from it. Like, he does a good job.
I don't want to do the same thing.
Probably would be helped to have a bigger guy in board of him at times. But like, I don't,
Yeah, I don't want to go back to the well and pick him to have a year 3 breakout after saying he would in year 2. Like, I'm not going to do that every year until he does it. But I'm excited for Keanu Benton 2025. Just as I'm excited to record another podcast tomorrow, Alan. But DB will be on the podcast tomorrow. I know I said that last week, didn't end up happening. I promise. DB will be on the podcast tomorrow. But Alan, tell the people they can find you.
At @Saunders_PGH on X, Instagram, TikTok, and Blue Sky. PGH Steelers Now as a sites account. SteelersNow.com. Go there, read the words so that I can get paid, and sign up for SN Plus, which we super appreciate. I should start shouting out the people that sign up for SN Plus here on the podcast. What do you think about that, Smitty? Should we do that? We just got one.
Have their name scroll across the bottom from time to time when they're new.
That would be cool. We just had one come in this week from Tony Life. I don't know if that's Tony's real name, but that's how we signed up. So
Life, literally LIFE.
Tony Life 68. Okay.
Okay.
But we appreciate it and we thank you. And we want to see more of it. And of course, everyone can like, subscribe, hit that bell for notifications on the YouTube platform. As always, the tiniest percentage of our audience is subscribing on here, and it would be way better if everyone listening just went over and went click, 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 and it cost you.
Yeah, who's that person? Fred Taylor. We need Fred Taylor.
We need Fred Taylor. And we are still seeing very solid growth in our subscribers. I think this is up 100 from yesterday. Is that right? 15,457.
Okay. Terrence Darvin.
Oh, I'll go Kieran Fox.
Nice.
Yeah, we did. Several people shouted out Earl Holmes. Yeah, and that was an egregious error yesterday. So
okay, yeah. All right.
Yeah, I got one more 57. I'm getting in my bag here, and maybe I should save it in case we come up again.
Yeah.
All right, I'll save it. But Kieran Fox is a good one. I'll stand on that.
There we go. And Tony Life, by the way, is already getting a shout out for subscribing to SN Plus. So we scroll across the bottom here. But yeah, like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. Hit us in the comments with your thoughts on anything that we talked about today. A question for a future episode as we work through less than a month until the NFL draft. Less than 3 weeks, actually, until the NFL draft. At this point, if you're listening somewhere else, Apple, Spotify, wherever your podcast from, be sure to leave a 5-star review and subscribe over there. Just search Steelers Afternoon Drive. Do the same thing on TikTok, and then you'll find me everywhere. Zachary Smith, PGH. For Alan Saunders and myself, thanks for jumping in and taking another ride on the Steelers Afternoon Drive.